Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming along to our latest webinar Wednesday. This one is entitled Elevate Your Inventory Planning Beyond Spreadsheets. And I'm joined by a couple of colleagues from our partner Netstock, who will be taking you through some of the pains that probably be quite recognizable to yourselves in terms of inventory management and planning, and how their solution can help mitigate some of those pains and offer some improvements in various different areas in collaboration with Syspro, being your sort of single source of truth of where your inventory data sits. Netstock works closely with the Syspro environment and Syspro data. So this is something that adds to your Syspro ecosystem, if you like. If we can just move on to the next slide, please, Alistair. I'll just do some intros. For anybody that doesn't know me, I'm Andrew Longland. I'm the Managing Director of Hit Technology. We're a Syspro Premium Solutions partner in the UK and Ireland. And joining us today from Netstock, we have Alistair Taylor, who's the VP of Sales for the EMEA region, and Sam Voke, who's a sales engineer from Netstock as well. You'll be pleased to know you won't hear too much from me throughout this. I'm merely here as the host. I'll be handing over in a bit to Alistair and Sam to go through the content and have a bit of a dive into what Netstock can do for you. If we can just move on to the next slide, please. So just very quickly, a bit of background about us at Hit Technology. As I mentioned, we're a Syspro partner for the UK and Ireland. Syspro is the core of everything we do. We concentrate on one ERP system, and that is Syspro, but we have a number of other applications that sit around the Syspro ecosystem, Netstock being one of them, where they add value to what Syspro can do for you. So we've got things like Netstock for the inventory planning and management side of things. We also have relationships with warehouse management solutions, integration, middleware, etc. But Syspro is always at the core of everything we do. This slide's actually slightly out of date. I think that should actually say 17 years pedigree as of about 2 weeks ago. I think we celebrated our 17th birthday. But anyway, we've been around for a while. And actually that works quite well, because then we come on to 17 experienced staff. Perhaps we have to add an extra member of staff each year. Yeah, we have a team of staff who are multi-skilled in consultancy, support, project management, service delivery, etc., all centered around Syspro and the other applications that we provide and support. And quite simply, we have one aim, and that is to provide a service to our customers who sit in the manufacturing and distribution space to manage their ERP environment, provide good advice and consultancy around anything to do with Syspro and third-party applications that sit around that space. So that is probably more than you wanted to hear from me anyway. So I will hand over now to Alistair, who will just talk to you a little bit about Netstock and some of the issues around inventory management and forecasting and planning. Alistair, over to you.
Thanks, Andrew. Like Andrew said, I'm Alistair Taylor. I'm the VP of Sales for EMEA for Netstock. Netstock is a 25-year plus organization. We've got 2,500 customers around the world, and we manage in excess of 30 billion of inventory across the globe. So we're going to talk to you about a number of different things today. The first thing we're going to look at are the challenges around inventory. We're then going to look at what life will be like after you implement Netstock, so how it will be different from today. We'll look at how risk plays an important part in inventory management, and then we'll go on to how it actually works into an overview of that. And then I'll hand that the reins over to Sam, our solution consultant, to actually give you a quick overview demonstration of the software, and we'll finish off with, as all of these things do, with a questions and answers session for you. So let's move straight into what the business problems are. So First of all, what's inventory? So we did a translation. I managed the German business, and in Germany, there's two words for inventory. And when we did some translations a while ago, we used the wrong one. So the term that we used translates basically as tables and chairs. And what it should have been is inventory, which is items that are stored in your business that you hold in stock. So that could be raw materials for manufacturing, it could be finished goods, it could be spares, it could be a mixer of all those things. It could be a retail stores, it could be distribution centers where you actually hold something physical. So we're talking about physical stock that you're either going to sell or that you're going to make something from to sell. So that's the term of inventory that we're looking at. So the first problem, once you've got inventory, and if I talk to an FD or a CFO in the business and say, tell me about your inventory, the first thing they'll tell me is, Alistair, we've got too much stuff. We've got too much money tied up in inventory. We've bought too much. We haven't sold enough, and it's costing me a lot of money to store it. So typically we find when we talk to organizations, they've got somewhere between 20 and 40% of too much stock, of excess stock. Now that has two real impacts on the business. The first one is cash flow. If you've got 2 million tied up, for example, in excess, so you've got 10 million stock, you've got 20% tied up in excess, 2 million in excess, that's £2 million that you could be using in your business elsewhere to invest in other projects that will actually bring you some value. The second part of it is 20% of that excess also is the cost of holding that excess. To actually physically hold material costs you money in terms of time, systems, movement, and that's if it's in your barn. Think of the exponential costs if you're using 3PLs or third-party warehousing, where you're actually paying someone extra to actually do all this. So excess stock has two major impacts. One is going to be cash flow, and the second one's actually going to be real costs just to store it. I then talk to the chief revenue officer or the head of sales, and I'll tell them, tell me about your inventory. And they'll say, there's never enough stuff to sell. My sales team go out, we make a sale, and guess what? It's not in the barn, and we can't get a hold of it. We don't have stock. We can't make it. And that's the same story if I talk to production. There's not enough raw material for me to meet my demand through the manufacturing process. So what's the impact of this? Well, the impacts, the first one is loss of sales, especially if you're in distribution and retail. If you don't have it today, you lose the sale, and you're not going to get the sale tomorrow because you've let the customer down today. So the impact of not having stock is actually losing sale, which is right off the bottom of your business plan. So that's one element. But the other thing is you might not be able to make the right stuff. If you're doing manufacturing and you've got one item out of a bill of material that's missing, you can't manufacture, which means you've then got equipment sitting there idle, which is just as bad, right? Any asset that's not working is an asset not making you money or paying for itself. So that's the second element of it, is the lack or not enough of the right inventory. The third thing that I then go into the planning department and say, well, you've obviously, this isn't working well. You've got a problem. Well, why is it? Oh, I don't know why it is, because I spend hours trying to get this right. Okay, I spend hours in spreadsheets. I'm talking to the salesman, and the salesman never give me a right forecast. I'm talking to production, and we never get the production times right. Our customers don't give us a forecast. So we've got to second guess what the customer wants to buy and when they're going to buy it. And then we're seasonal. So in the summer, here's a story from my past. There was a factory that I used to work with in Croatia. It made two products. In the summer, it made frozen fish food. So frozen fish meals with butter sauce, right? In the winter, it made ice cream on the same factory processing lines, okay? They had a seasonal business, yeah? So in the winter, they made for the summer, and in the summer, they made for the winter. Again, that impacts the line item forecasting. And if you've got 10,000 items. How do you forecast for every single line across there? Just takes a lot of time, a lot of effort. And you know what? It's going to be wrong because you're not bringing things like risk into play. Um, Sales have lied to you, customers have lied to you, shipments have gone awry. All of that stuff means that your reorder triggering points are not right because you don't know what you're supposed to have. And the final thing, of course, is the glory of spreadsheets. We all love a good spreadsheet. Um, and spreadsheets are never wrong. We never make errors in spreadsheets. The formulas in spreadsheets are always 100% accuracy. And oh, look, I can see a flying cow and a flying pig just going over the house out the side of here. It's not the way life is, right? So there's a huge amount of risk by using manual spreadsheets. Another example for that would be I ran a factory in Logan in Utah 3 or 4 years ago. And we had a report that came to us and it went to the senior management and we thought it was in dollars. It wasn't, it was actually in pounds. So when we did the actual sums, we were out by 22%, all because the currency wasn't specified in one column in the spreadsheet. So, and that's a PLC, a large organization, completely getting it wrong because part of their manufacturing and production and inventory management was on a spreadsheet. So that's today. Now, if you're holding inventory, I'm not going to ask for a show. I am going to ask for a show of hands. Can everybody give me a thumbs up if you have any of those problems in your business? Andrew does. So he's, even though he's got his own software company, he's got those problems, and Rachel does as well. Exactly. I'm not talking about anything weird and wonderful here. This is just the norm, right? So let's move on to what could it look like? Well, just think if we had a tool that allowed you to balance your inventory, right? So you had the right amount of stuff. You didn't have too much of the wrong stuff, and you didn't have too little of the right stuff. So your cash is released. It's not tied up in stock. Okay. You're not paying those horrible excess costs for holding the goods, or even worse, paying a 3PL to hold stuff that you're never going to sell and that you don't really need. And on the flip of it, just think if you had the right stuff to sell all the time and you didn't miss sales, right? You didn't get to you got an online store and the customer comes to buy, but there's one item that you don't have, so they go and buy the whole basket elsewhere. Yeah, that could be the future. And then just think about how you could save time. So instead of spending hours and hours and hours in spreadsheets, you could do this in a matter of minutes every single day. Instead of thinking and spending all your time in procurement and buying, how about freeing your time up to talk to your suppliers to get better prices? We've got a customer who implemented Netstock, and they had 3 planners working full-time in planning. By implementing Netstock, they managed to get that down to 1.5 people. So they released the other 1.5 people. I don't know how you get a half a person. Maybe they work in the afternoon on one thing and one on the other. And they turned them into supplier management. Okay. And we've got a case study on this. And what they did is with one vendor, one of their biggest suppliers, they got a 7% reduction in their costs. This led to £500,000 additional profit on the bottom line of the business because it was one of their major suppliers. Okay, so just imagine spending all that time in spreadsheets, getting it wrong because you've got too much or you've got too little. You've actually got time now to go out and be proactive. And that's the future that we're talking about. So in the end, you're only dealing with what has to be dealt with. You can be proactive and you can manage by exception rather than manage everything at once in one big go where you don't feel that you've got control and you're trying to push the inventory procurement octopus into the string bag of Excel. Okay. So that's the future that we're going to go. And that's what Netstock's going to do for you. We're going to take those problems and over time, we're going to solve them. So how do we do that? So the first thing to talk about is risk. Okay. Inventory is a risky business. Now, I'm not talking about the 1980s film by Tom Cruise and Rebecca De Mornay. It is a major part of the problem with your inventory. Now, you've been doing wonderful work in your spreadsheets, But one of the things you can't put into your spreadsheet is the risk that comes from your suppliers. Suppliers rarely deliver on time and on full, right? They deliver early and full, early and too much, early and too little, or late too much, late too little. Yep. Rarely is it on time and in full. If you're lucky, you get an in full, not necessarily on the day that you want to get to. With our solution, we actually incorporate that risk into how we do all the calculations. And the second one is the demand risk. Now, I have a phrase that I use in my sales team from the television program House, if you remember that. And it's one of Dr. House's favorite phrases, which is everybody lies. So your customers are going to lie to you about when they're going to need stuff and how much they're going to need. And I feel sorry I've got to say this as a salesperson, but your sales team are going to get it wrong. Okay, so your demand forecast is going to be wrong. And there's a risk to that. And we calculate that and put it into our software calculations. So how does it all work? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to put a connector onto your Syspro system. And we're going to suck out a whole load of information on a daily basis on that. We're going to suck out your sales history, your procurement history, all the demand information out of your Syspro environment. And then we'll straight away start to work to provide you with the information that you're going to need. Okay, so we're taking all that information in. Daily, we do calculations around that information to work out what stock you should have, what stock you don't have, and to classify that stock. Okay. From that, we then allow you through dashboards and reports to manage everything dynamically using exception management. Yeah. So you're not managing everything, you're just managing it where it's going to go wrong on a day-to-day basis. And everything else the system does. So to reduce your excess, we're not going to allow you to order stuff that's going to put you into excess. We're going to allow you to order at the right time from the right people to allow you to not go into excess. To stop stockouts, we're going to tell you you need to order this from these people now. And I'll put those orders so you can put them through your Syspro's ordering system, okay, for authorization. And then on the dashboards, you're going to be able to see everything. And finally, what we have now in the tool, we have an AI tool, which will actually tell you what to do, when to do, how to do it, and why you need to do it. Okay, so that's what the system's going to do. And then we're going to output those POs back into Syspro for you to authorize to send out to your suppliers once you've approved them. So I'm going to hand over to Sam. To allow him to do the demonstration. So over to you, Sam. I'm going to stop sharing.
Great. Thank you, Alistair. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so here's my screen. I'm just going to check that you can see me moving from tab to tab. Can you? Yeah?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
And you can hear me well? Fantastic. Yeah. Okay. So thanks for that, Alistair. Just a bit of background about myself. I used to be a planner. I used to be a planner buyer, actually, preferred procurement, but I used to use Netstock myself. So there's lots I do know about Netstock. If there are any questions, please address them. But what we are seeing on the screen here, well, this is our classification matrix. So the moment we plug in, we segment all of your items, and then you will see this run through the whole of our application. Let me talk you through the calculations here very quickly. What ABC is. ABC is our Pareto analysis. Often we see that 20% of the items drive 80% of the sales. And this is what we break it down here. And what's really great is you can actually see the calculations anywhere in our applications. It's very open. So in this instance, we've got forecast multiplied by cost price, which equates to A items being 80%, B items 16%, and C items 4%. So that's forecast multiplied by cost price. We can change this to look at selling price and margin if we have salespeople involved. But we do this all again, and we look simply at forecast. And what we are seeing here is a measurement of velocity. So how quickly our products are moving. Just to show you, We can see the breakdown of the calculations and we can tweak these parameters. But where I'm really getting to is this matrix. So this colorful matrix here, it runs all the way through the application and we'll be able to see how our products are performing in terms of their cost, value, and velocity. So we have ABC down the left here and high, medium, and low at the top. What this tells us is that these 135 items here, well, these items are our most expensive, fast-moving items. Therefore, they drive the most amount of value to our company. We also consider these two items, these two classifications in green to be our bread and butter items also. Down here, there's tail end, the slow-moving, low-value items. So this is where I used to strategize as a previous user. Let me just show you how I used to very quickly. So we can look at where our stock value lies across our classifications. In healthy companies, we'd expect the classifications in the green and the blue to be higher, less in the red. But where I used to use this, I used to look at my stock outs. So here are my stock outs. If I have any stock outs in my green location, this is where I'm not going home until I address the stock outs. Down here in the CLs, however, this is where my managing director used to say to me, Sam, why is this item out of stock? I'd say, yeah, it is out of stock, unfortunately. Let's turn that into an advantage. We've only sold it 4 times this year. Let's get it out of the range. Let's consolidate. Let's bring it back in line. Let's make it non-stocked, special order, whatever we can do to consolidate. The second way I used to strategize was to have a look at my excess stock across my classifications. As you can see here, we have a high tower of excess in this CL. Now, if I compare that to demand, I have a low tower of demand. So already, without further investigation by drilling into one of these reports, well, that tells me without a mitigating action from ourselves, such as a clearance sale, a promotion, well, it's going to take a long time to drill down these items in the CL. So this is your gold mine to try and consolidate your items. Now, very powerfully, it is the starting point. We segment your items the moment we come in. And we do this by location. We forecast by location. Locations are intrinsic to Netstock. So if you have multiple locations, we can view them one by one by one by one. We can roll them up into a global location and we could split them out into regional views. We can even bring in virtual locations as well. Very location intrinsic. But the second reason for me showing you classifications is to come up with what we define as our policy parameters. So very quickly here, I'm not going to bore you. The 2 parameters into getting to our optimum stock levels is replenishment cycle and target fill. Replenishment cycle, well, this is simply the frequency at which we make or buy. And target fill, well, this is our desired service level across our classifications here. Now, using these 2 calculations, well, we come up with what we call our model stock. That's our optimum holding quantity. And we can do some policy modeling within this side of the application as well. So in a nutshell, that is classifications. We've come in, the moment we plugged in, we've sucked out the data from Syspro and we've segmented all of the stock. Now, this is when everything is performing okay. Anything outside of this is an exception. We're not looking at exceptions line by line by line now. We're managing just the exceptions that aren't managing okay. So this appears in our dashboard. So this is our dashboard. What we have is a measurement of performance in the last 13 days, weeks, and months. And again, items perform differently at different locations. So this is where we can view our different locations. But what's on the screen here and what I'm only focusing on for today are our dashboard KPIs. This is our stock holding the moment we plug in, where we know that stock holding. And this is today's actual. That's where we've got to over time. And this is that model stock target that we've just calculated within classifications. And to get to this model stock target, we have to hit a target fill rate of 96.3%. So you can see now how it's all interlinked. This is our second KPI. But how do we get to this KPI? How do we improve our fill rate? And how do we decrease our stock to get to the model stock? This here is our stock out report. So these are all our items that have an opening balance of 0 or negative. Very handily, the moment we plug in, well, we know a lost cost of sales by multiplying the forecast by the cost price for all the items that are out of stock. So that's the lost cost of sales right there. And that is quite a hard number to come up with within Excel spreadsheets, but we do that the moment we come in. It's better to address a situation before it occurs. Over here, we have our potential stock outs. So these items, they are items that are going to go out of stock prior to replenishment. We might not have placed a purchase order. We might have placed a purchase order, yet we've received a high demand recently, which means we haven't placed enough now. This here is our expediting report. This is where we come in, we squeeze our suppliers, we place urgent orders. And by doing so, we're going to stop stockouts happening. So by addressing these two KPIs, these two sub KPIs, well, we increase our availability. Therefore, we increase our target fill rate. We're increasing our orders to our customers. Great. At the very same time, we're starting to optimize. So this report up here, this is our excess stock reports. This is everything that's above our dynamic maximum level. I'll drill into the maximum level calculation a bit later, but everything above the max is considered excess stock. It's that thick layer of dust on your items in the warehouse where that investment could have been used elsewhere. Again, the moment we plug in, we know the value of the excess. So that's the excess value right there, the moment we plug in. It's better to address a situation before it occurs. These are our surplus orders. So this report here looks into all the orders that are currently open within our ERP. And if we do nothing about the items on these orders, will then become excess stock. So this is very much the reverse of expediting. This is where we need to delay, reduce, or cancel as much as we can do so to stop any excess heading into the warehouse. And by doing so, that's how we start to optimize our stock levels. So right here, we're drilling down on the excess stock. We're stopping excess stock occurring in the first place, and we're working towards optimizing our overall inventory. So that there is the dashboard in a nutshell. We've come in, we've segmented, we've addressed our exceptions. So now we're going to go into forecasting. So this is our forecasting, and this is where I like to use my experience in the real world. I used to buy food packaging, and that will become apparent in a second. This is how all of our items have performed over time, and this is the forecast into the future. So this can be viewed at a cost price, selling price, margin, or units. This is handy for us when, say, our managing directors, our CEOs, our chiefs, they tell us we're growing the company 10% this year. So we use that slider, and all I simply have done is I've increased all of our forecasts for all of our items by 10%. But more handy for me as a planner was to be able to do this at a category level. So now we imagine this grouping here, handsets. Well, this is paper straws. So we've got all the sizes and all the colors of paper straws underneath. Let's say we have 10 items underneath there. I apply the paper straws. That's how paper straws have performed over time. That's the forecast into the future. However, I know that plastic straws have been banned. I've been great because I've ordered enough paper straws to get me on the front foot. So I'm set to now double my demand on the paper straws to 200% there. All the items underneath that category have had their forecast doubled, and we've saved time in the process. We haven't gone into the item by item by item. We've increased the forecast for all the items there. So let me just clear that filter. Under here, well, these are our suspect forecasts. This is where we're really going to drill into the detail and get our forecast correct. This is a variance outside of the normal forecast. So where sales exceeds forecast, well, we're going to go into a stock out position. And where forecast exceeds sales, well, this is where perhaps we've lost a customer, or perhaps we haven't had an order from one of our customers when we should have. So for me, it drove an S and OP sort of situation where I'd get in touch with my salespeople and I'd say, hey, listen, what's going on? Have we received a high sale? Is there a new customer I need to be aware of? And in the very much reverse, not that I'm into salespeople bashing, but they love to tell us when we have a new customer. But are they going to tell us when we've lost a customer? This is where we're going to pick up on that. So they are the suspect forecasts. So what we've done is we've come in, we've segmented the stock, we've addressed the exceptions, and we're getting to the most accurate forecast that we can, whether that's a macro level amendment or an item level amendment, where we're getting the perfect forecast. So what is a product demo nowadays without artificial intelligence? Let's have a look at our opportunities engine. So the opportunities engine, this whips around. It looks at all of the opportunities already in the system, and it's a list view. So this top thing, it's always fun to demo because it always changes. But this top item I'm going to show is going to be the most value-adding activity. So from 1 to 22, these are the most value-adding activities. So if I click show me, well, I've got 19 units of a surplus order on this surplus product on this purchase order at that warehouse. This is the value of the surplus. I should attempt to cancel the order. And you know what? I think that's quite handy. So I say yes. I click show more. And again, I've got another order that are surplus to requirements. And I say, yes, that's handy. Show me more. And I keep going through and through and through until I've addressed all of my things here in the opportunity engine. This can be broken down into the locations, and then we can filter down into the product groupings as well. So we really can start to segment what we're seeing. But now we're going to address our USP. We're going to talk about safety stock calculations and what makes Netstock different to everybody else. So this is one particular item right now. We pull through average cost, selling price, weight, and any other metrics you might have. We know the stock on hand and we work with the preferred supplier only. But this is our safety stock calculation over here. Other people, they always take into account target fill, replenishment and lead time as inputs into safety stock. But we take this a step further. As we addressed, we look at forecast risk, where we're over and under. And we look at supply risk. So let's drill into that. You can see here, we've got offset, but why? So we can see where forecast has met sales. This is our history. So over time, we've been overzealous with our forecasting, you can see here, which would usually lead to an excess stock position. But to mitigate against that over forecasting, we've minused a day of safety stock here. So we're not going into excess stock. Very much my favorite part of the application, being a procurement guy, supplier performance. We know how suppliers are. They're worst at the best of times, and need I say more? So you imagine that you're going to receive your delivery on day 1, but it comes on day 10. Well, there's 9 days that you've eaten into your stock, you've eaten into your safety stock, you've gone into a stock out position, you've got an annoyed customer. You can see here, we've measured the OTIF in this occasion, and we've had 9 early deliveries, and we've had 17 late deliveries. That's poor performance. So to mitigate against this, to stop us going into that stock out position, we've added 11 days of safety stock to offset against this poor supplier performance. So this was very much my favorite side of the application. It's showing how our suppliers are performing. You can see we've sucked in the lead time from the ERP, and we've measured on average the lead times from the date raised to the date first delivered. So I'm just going to switch to a different item. So safety stock is our minimum level, but we don't buy days of stock, we buy units. So using our tournament-based best fit algorithm approach, we assign a trend. And as you can see, we've picked up on seasonality here. And now by using that forecast, we convert days into units, and we add our lead time to our safety stock to define our classic reorder point. We add the replenishment cycle into the equation to give us our order up to, which is now our max. Right there, we have our min, max, and reorder point. All dynamic. Any change to the target fill or lead time, any high order that comes in, any amendment to a forecast will certainly have a knock-on effect on this policy. We know our stock on hand, and we minus any overdue purchase or sales orders to give us our available stock. And then we add in any open purchase orders to give us our net stock position. And if this net stock position is less than the reorder point, well, that's where we come up with a recommended order quantity, taking into account our minimum order quantities and order multiples. So this is today. But not only can we see today, this grey band here is our variable min and max level over time. The red line here being the replenishment cycle over time, which is great because then this can be relayed into a forecast for our manufacturers, for our suppliers. At the click of a button, we can download a forecast, send it to our suppliers. It's a very powerful piece there. So often we deal with manufacturers. So what we can see is if this box here is ticked, well, then we know that this item is part of a finished good, a subcomponent or a component, a raw material. Let me click here and you can see we have the finished good at the top and the recipe of the items that go into making this finished good. And if I hover over a line, we can see the ratio of making 1 unit of this finished good. Anywhere here, we can click, we can see where we click on the eye, where we can see the inventory position of every single item that goes into making the finished good. Now, if I click on this item, we have a whip around and we have a look at this item. Okay, there we go. So if we click, I've clicked on that item and I can also see that that item, that component is also part of these subcomponents and finished goods as well. But what's really powerful and what our customers love is the visibility we give you here. If I click on this table, we can see the bill of material forecast for every item tagged to this finished good, month by month, a total for the year. We understand that machines are run usually every week, so we can break this down into weekly requirements also, which can then be relayed into a manufacturing order. So just to wrap up before we get to placing the perfect purchase order, we've come in, we've segmented the stock into the classifications, we've addressed the exceptions, we've had a little look around and we've addressed our forecasts. We've made sure we've got the most perfect forecast that we can get to. Then we've added a level of safety stock to mitigate our suppliers and our over or under forecasting. And now by getting that perfect forecast, well, we're on the way to raising the perfect purchase order. So I'm going to be raising the purchase order here now in the ordering screen. So if I go to orders, this is everything. This is every supplier that we need to order from today. We understand that our customers import. I dealt with Chinese New Year myself, and this is how I would use it. This is one of my Chinese suppliers, but I know that he's going to shut down. Usually they shut down for a month, but it takes them about 2 weeks to get actually back to their desks and working. So it's about 45 days that they are actually gone for. So take note, the product count was 97 for this order, but I know that this supplier is shutting down. So I've increased that product count. What I've done quite simply is I've cast a net into the future. I bought 45 days of demand to me today to place on that purchase order. And by doing so, I've covered myself for that shutdown period. So now let's have a look at a supplier to order from. I click on the radio toggle, I click create order. What I have here is my recommended order, and you can see that classifications have followed us all the way through the application. Handy when we have budget restraints sometimes. We can see that we have the recommended order quantity here. This recommended order quantity never takes us above the maximum level. Therefore, we are never pushing you into an excess stock position with our recommended order quantities. So just before we place this order, well, perhaps maybe you can see here we have an MOQ of 400, but the ideal order is 158 for optimization. So we've got a great relationship now. We've sent a forecast, so I can get my minimum order quantity down. Maybe we have a price break here. 400 is the price break. I want to order under that. 81 is the ideal. Loads of warehouse space. So I take this to 81, but actually, sorry, finance, I need to increase the actual cost by £2. You can see up here, we've left a note that says a container is 950 cubic meters. What a whopper of a container. It's probably half a boat, but it's to get to the target we're getting to. So we go to add items to this order. We select from top up items. These were items that will be for reorder soon, but we're not quite there. Units helps us fill up lorries. I had a lorry that used to take 1,200 units. Cost, that helps us hit a minimum order value. Perhaps one of our suppliers pays for carriage over a certain value. Volume and weight, direct inputs into container filling. Again, we're at 872 meters cubed. I need to get to 950. I click solve. We've got to 945. I'm just going to add this CM item into the equation. I've got to 956. This is fine. We're slightly over. What suppliers ask us for when we've hit the perfect container, they always come back to us and they say, Sam, what's your cut and what's your fill? That always used to be annoying for me somewhat once you've got to the perfect container. Using our classifications, let's cut away one of the CLs, our low value, slow moving items. Let's fill on an AH and then let's place the order. I've placed the order now, ready to place on our suppliers. So to wrap up what we've done, we've segmented the stock. Yes.
Just a quick one there. So what happens there is we've actually outputted a purchase order to go into Syspro to go through approvals, correct? Rather than, it's not an order placed on the supplier, it's a recommended order that goes into Syspro to then go through the approval process as normal.
That's correct. That's correct. So thanks, Alistair. So we don't place the orders on the supplier at all. This is the recommended order to go into the ERP to place as a PDF on the supplier. Thanks, Alistair. So then to wrap up, we've segmented, we've addressed expectations, we've forecasted, we've stopped stock outs occurring, we've addressed our excess stock, and you've just seen me how long it's taken to fill a container and raise a purchase order. This was so much quicker than I've ever been able to do in an Excel spreadsheet. Stock outs, excess stock, time saving, that's the name of the game. That's what we've done today. So now this is the point when we open the floor to any questions. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we can address any questions.
Thanks, Sam, and thanks, Alistair, as well. Yeah, Sam says that the floor's now open for questions. As we're a fairly small group here, if anybody wants to just ask the question verbally, feel free to take yourself off mute to ask that, or if you prefer, you can put it into the chat. Just while people are thinking of questions to ask, just a couple of things from me. First of all, in Alistair's initial presentation, talking about the inventory management challenges, there was so much that resonated with me personally from my days of running supply chain teams, and you know, there's so many of those things that I thought, yep, experienced that as well. So yeah, clearly Netstock is there to solve a lot of those common problems that people have, and I'm sure the attendees at this webinar will be feeling similar as well. And the other thing I just wanted to say is, Sam, your enthusiasm and passion for inventory management, it shouts volumes. It has to be said.
Thank you.
You are definitely from a you know, a place where you've experienced these things like many other people that are probably on this call, and have come across Netstock as a good solution for solving those problems. So thank you for sharing your passion.
I always say this is the reason why I'm starting to thin on top, was because I have been in supply chain management.
Then I've been here longer.
Yeah.
So I've got a question. It's a matter of interest.
Ahead,
Where does MRP calculations fit into this? Does this replace running an MRP calculation, or does it complement it, or do the two work together?
So we pull the data out of the ERP. So whether it's sales data, run rate, whatever that data is, we pull that from the ERP, and then using that tournament-based best fit algorithm, we forecast, and that forecast becomes the bill of material. So in essence, we forecast at the finished good level, and we blow the requirements down to the components, subcomponents, sub-subcomponents.
So, but would you then still have to run an MRP calculation in the ERP system?
So we don't replace an MRP in full. We have done for people who've had, for customers who've had weaker MRPs in place. It's really depends on the intensity of your manufacturing process. Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, if it's true, what I would class as true full manufacturing, then you need your MRP in place for that. If it's assembly, so mid to small scale assembly, then or kitting, then we can replace the MRP at that point. But that would be the distinction.
But you have found that customers can run both, and there's no conflict between the two, basically.
No.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, but I think the forecasting element, could be used to push that actual forecast into the Syspro forecasting engine, could it?
Yeah, we could download our forecast and that could go into, well, absolutely, within Syspro, yeah.
Because then the MRP calculation would then take that into account in terms of creating production orders as well as purchase orders.
Capacity planning and that sort of stuff would do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we don't do capacity planning in the system. So if you need capacity planning for machinery and that sort of stuff, you need your MRP in place, and we can be the input into that MRP.
Yeah, excellent. Just a quick one on return on investment. What's the average sort of time frame where you see with customers getting a return on their investment with this sort of solution?
Typically somewhere between 6 months and a year, to be frank, open and honest, because we're looking at three elements. It takes a while to learn the system, so the timing element takes a bit of time before that time gets freed up. Okay, because onboarding takes between a month and 3 months, depending on the size, scope, and the effort that the customer puts into place. You will see your stock holdings go up initially a little bit, so there'll be you're making more investment, because the easiest thing to deal with is stock outs, to make sure you don't go into stock out situation. And then the movement of excess down is based on a number of elements. So it's based on not placing orders on fast moving things until you need to. So that takes care of itself pretty quickly. Slow and medium paced things take longer, and often it depends. One of the things we can do is identify excess stock that's either obsolete or is slow moving, low value, where you can actually do a fire sale or whatever to get rid of that stock. We tell you what you need to, we show you what is in excess. How you deal with that is up to you. We will manage it down over time, but it will take, but it is a very quick ROI. If you think about it, if you've got, we can typically reduce excess by 50% in the first 12 months. Okay, if you've got £1 million worth of stock in excess, at the end of the year, you're going to have $500,000, and the system costs a fraction of that.
Absolutely.
If you're losing sales, it's a fraction. If you've got 4 people doing this, and we can move 2 of those people into supplier performance rather than just procurement and forecasting, then you're going to see a quicker return. So typically, it's a 6 to 12 month return, if not a lot quicker, depending on the decisions the customers make. But it is customer decision dependent.
Absolutely. Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
And one of the things we didn't talk about, just the other thing, just to bear with thoughts are, one of the things we can do in the system as well, which Sam didn't show due to time, is the ability to balance stock across locations. So if you've got retail locations or distribution centers or warehouses that are feeding different parts of your customer base across the country or across Europe or across the world, you can actually, we'll tell you to move stock from Aberdeen to Dunbar, or from Newcastle to Carlisle, or London to Paris, whatever, providing it's economically viable for you to do so you don't buy additional stock as well. So that's the other thing that we can do, is actually start to balance your stock across all of your You know, things that are black and white sell very well in Newcastle, but they don't sell very well in Sunderland. You know, those sorts of situations, shall we say, whether it's weather or anything else dependent.
I can't think why those colours would make any difference, Alistair.
Any other questions? No. Okay. Well, thank you all for your time.
Yeah, I think you've answered everything very well anyway through the presentation and demo. Alistair, could you just skip on to the last one? That's it. Thank you. So yeah, just to wrap up, we're nearly at the hour mark now anyway. So we've kept to good time there. I just want to say thank you to everybody for attending. Especially thank you to Alistair and Sam for their efforts on this and presenting and demoing the product. And as I said before, the passion that's shown throughout has been great. Just shows that Netstock is a great product, and sits alongside the likes of Syspro to add massive value. So thank you everybody. If anybody is interested in learning any more, wants to do a bit of a deeper dive, more relevant to their own business, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd be glad to set something up with the guys from Netstock, so that you can get into more detail. You can email us or call us, or being very clever, there's some QR codes on the screen there that if you grab your phone, you can do the clever thing and it'll take you to our LinkedIn page and things like that. Hopefully, if it's working. I'm no expert, but I'm sure it will work. So yeah, feel free to get in touch, and we can set things up. We can talk about the commercial side of things and that sort of thing. But yeah, just wrapping up. Thank you everybody. Hope this has been useful. Recording of this will go onto our YouTube account within the next few days. So if you've got any colleagues that weren't able to come, or if there's something that you missed or want to show someone, please feel free to look on our YouTube account, and you'll see this recording there within the next few days. And I think that's it. So yeah, thank you and have a good rest of the day.
Thanks a lot, Andrew.
Thank you, everyone.